Alright guys, so I'm making this video as a direct response to the protests that's been happening in the UK for the past week and a half now. I'm sure all of you guys have seen what happened through social media. It's a terrible tragedy, the tragic stabbing death of 3 young innocent girls. And I think everybody could see something like this happening for the past few decades now. So the real issue is that our government and the politicians, they have become a complete tyranny. They have become 100% communist and totalitarian, and they're trying to bring down the Western civilization. If you're watching this from the UK, something extremely similar is happening in Canada. Right now in Canada, they keep talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. However, if you look at the recent arrivals in Canada in the past 10 years, I would say 70 to 80% of them are from one country. There's one monopoly, and that country is India. Who is behind this? It's gotta be Justin Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh, because that's the only way to explain the numbers behind this. So I'll give you an example. So last year, Canada's population increased by 1.3 million. So that is actually the highest increase per capita in the world. And you wonder why the housing market is failing. And you wonder why the infrastructure cannot keep up. And you wonder why the wait time at a hospital in Ottawa is 9 hours. Well, no shit. You have a population that's exploding. And in the capital city of Canada with over 1 million people, there are only 4 major hospitals. Imagine the stress and the burdens on these doctors and nurses. Last year, the target for immigration to come into Canada was 450,000. However, the population increased by 1.3 million. Someone needs to be held responsible for this. I 100% do not believe that there's institutionalized racism in Western civilizations. However, on an individual person-to-person basis, yes, I believe that racism has gotten worse and worse and worse in the almost 20 years I've been living in the West now. It has not gotten any better. And yes, I actually agree with some of these white people, and the media keeps labeling them as these far-right white supremacists. I don't even know what that term means anymore. So like maybe 30 or 40 years ago, like if you call somebody homophobic, that actually meant something. 30 or 40 years ago, if you called somebody a racist, that actually meant something. If you call somebody a misogynist, that actually means something. But if you call somebody far right nowadays, it doesn't mean jack shit, right? The level of immigration is completely out of control, and it's completely destroying this country. You see the boxes behind me, right? I'm not making a joke. I'm really about to become homeless. And I think for the remainder of my years in Canada, I'm not sure how long I will be here. I mentioned before, as soon as I can pay off my debt, I'm going to hop onto a plane and I'm getting the hell out of here, because Canada is turning into a shithole third world country. I am simply not able to pay rent any longer. Things have gotten so expensive. Well, think about it. When I arrived in Canada back in 2005, there was roughly 30 million people in this country. Now, if you go to Statistics Canada, which tracks Canada's population live, there's a clock. This is Canada's population clock. So Canada's population is at 41.5 million now. So Canada's population has gone up by 11.5 million in the past 20 years since I arrived in Canada. And that is all from immigration, from non-European, non-Christian immigration. Think about how much the demographics has changed in the past 20 years. I'm seeing it with my very own eyes. And I mentioned the international student scam that's happening. This has to get shut down. The universities need to be held accountable. The local liberal politicians need to be held accountable. So when Justin Trudeau took office back in 2015, there was 200,000 international students from universities and colleges combined. There was roughly 100,000 international students at universities and 100,000 at Canadian colleges. In 2023, this number reached 1 million. The number of international students studying at Canadian universities went up by 3-folds, so increased from 100,000 to 300,000. However, the number of international students studying at Canadian colleges jumped from 100,000 to 700,000 from 2015 to 2023 in 8 years. How the hell did that happen? Justin Trudeau, he needs to be held accountable. He needs to be put in prison for doing this because this is the most obvious immigration scam in the world. You want to know something? Where's this increase coming from? Where's Canada getting all these international students? All the increase is coming from one country. It's coming from India. If you don't believe me, this is a critical crisis in 3 provinces, in Nova Scotia, in Ontario, and in British Columbia. If you go to any Ontario college, here's a list of the Ontario colleges I'm putting on the screen. So in Ottawa, we have Algonquin College. In Kingston, there's St. Lawrence College. In Toronto, obviously, there's a bunch. Go to Seneca College. Go to Centennial College. Go to Sheridan College. Go to Humber College. Go to Conestoga College. You can go to Fanshawe College. No, seriously, if you live in Canada or if you live in the United States, if you're close to the Canadian border, go to Ontario and go check out some of these colleges. Walk around the campus. You will see that between 70 to 80% of the students are Indian now. Not 70 to 80% of international students. I'm talking about all students has been completely taken over. And I mentioned before, I graduated high school in 2010. So back in 2009, 2010, 2011-ish, I did actually, try to apply to some Ontario colleges. So before I applied, I thought I'd check out the campuses. So I did some walk around. I've been to like Fanshawe College. I've been to Conestoga College. And when I was doing those, campus tours, when I would check out the campus, I would say back in maybe 2010, 2011, I would say 70 to 80% of those students are white students. Now, just the Indian students make up 70 to 80% of the students' body within a span of less than 10 years. Canada is no longer Canada. It's turning into a complete shithole country. If Canada continues at this pace of immigration, which, the legal target for Canada is in 2024 is 500,000. But I mentioned the target last year was 450,000, but the population increased by 1.3 million. So this year, the population is probably going to increase by 1.4 million. And out of the 1.4 million, probably 700,000 of those people are going to come from India directly. So at this rate, I would say within the next 10 years, white Canadians will become a minority in this country. Okay, you can call this far right, you can call this xenophobic, you can call this anti-Indian, whatever you want to say. The Indians who have been living in Canada, okay, the ones that arrived before Trudeau increased the immigration target, before Trudeau allowed all of this to destroy our country, I'm sure you guys must be struggling as well, because how the hell are you supposed to survive? How are you supposed to pay rent? The number one issue in Canada is that the housing market has completely collapsed. No, for real. If you look at the housing vacancy rate, right now, according to Statistics Canada, Canada's housing vacancy rate is at 1.5%. That is actually the lowest in the world amongst the OECD countries. I'm going to repeat this point. That is the lowest in the world. So you have the lowest housing vacancy rate in the world, and you're bringing in 1.3 million people every single year into this country. That is the equivalent of the United States gaining 11 million people in just a single year. So these piece of shit corrupt politicians, they don't give a shit. They're all enjoying life in their $2 million, $3 million, $4 million mansions. They got their own butlers. They're driving their Mercedes-Benz, their BMWs. They don't ever have to worry about not making mortgage payment because they bought their home cash. They don't have to ever worry about paying rent. So why should they give a shit? Of course, these liberal politicians are out there saying that, oh yes, Canada welcomes diversity, more immigrants, more refugees. That's good for a country. So do you guys want to know why Canada's housing crisis has gotten to this point? So once again, this is from Statistics Canada. This is official government source. Back in 1973, Canada's immigration level was 150,000 people coming to Canada per year. However, Canada just kept on increasing this target. It was 150,000 people per year from 1970s until the 1980s. And then from the 1990s to 2015, the target was increased to 250,000 people per year. And that number stayed at 250,000 for 24 years. However, look at what's happening in Canada since Trudeau took power. Canada welcomed 250,000 people in 2015. In 2023, Canada welcomed 1.3 million people. You guys don't see what's happening? You guys don't think that this piece of shit is trying to destroy the country? Here's the major issue that everybody is realizing now. Look at this. Back in 1973, Canada built a total of 268,000 homes. This is back in 1973. This is when Canada's population was 22 million and the immigration target was only 150,000 people per year. Guess how many homes Canada built in 2023, just last year? 240,000 units combined. So the construction rate in Canada has gone down 12% over the course of the last 50 years, but the population has gone from 22 million to 41 million, and the number of immigrants coming into Canada has increased from 150,000 people per year to 1.3 million people per year. So there's the most obvious answer. You wonder why young people can't afford to buy a home. You wonder why young people cannot afford to rent an apartment. You wonder why Canada now has 300,000 people that's homeless. You wonder why 1 out of every 4 Canadians living in poverty. And you wonder why 70 to 80% of the Canadians believe that they'll never be able to retire now. Well, no shit. The government has betrayed you, and that's why everybody is so freaking pissed off. Okay, it's not just the policies in the UK, it's also the policies in the US, the policies in Canada, the policies in the Netherlands, in Belgium, in Spain, in Italy, in Greece, in France, in Germany. The Western countries have completely turned on its people. You have become a complete tyranny. You are actively trying to destroy your own country. You're setting up your youths. You're setting up all the new immigrants for failure. Because what are these people going to do? How are they going to find places to live? How are they going to find jobs? How are these families supposed to put food on the table? This is why almost every single person, it's not just the white people, it's the black people who have been living in Canada for a long time. I personally talked to many Indians that's living in Ottawa. They have also 100% turned against Trudeau. And it's also the Chinese people, it's also the Muslims that's living in Canada. Right now, if you want the honest truth, right, 70 to 80% of the population in these Western countries, they're all turning far right. This is not about Islamophobia or xenophobia. This is not about racism. Because these people, including the immigrants, I came to Canada as an immigrant almost 20 years ago. These people cannot afford to live anymore. Do you guys want to know what is going to be the end result of all of this? Have you guys heard of a Romanian dictator named Nicolae Ceausescu? So if you guys don't know Nicolae Ceausescu, you need to look up the Romanian Revolution that took place during Christmas of 1989. That is one epic story. So basically up until 1989, Romania was a 100% communist and socialist country. Nicolae Ceausescu, he lived the lifestyle of a billionaire, while over 90% of the population in Romania is struggling under their communist and socialist policies. The country is being destroyed by his 26 years of dictatorship. So what happens? After 26 years, the people have finally had enough. They finally stood up to their tyranny. Conformity, it's a choice. You have to stand up for what you believe in. And when your government becomes a tyranny, you have to stand up to your government, because that is the only way that things are going to change. This is not just about the liberals or conservatives anymore. This is not about political left or political right. It's not about the Democrats and Republicans, because it's becoming very obvious that it is the goal of almost every single politician that's living in these countries. They just don't give a shit. As long as they can live their multi-millionaire lifestyle, they don't care if they completely destroy the Western civilization. So in the Christmas of 1989, when the people had finally had enough against Nicolae Ceausescu, when they had finally had enough against communism, when they finally had enough against socialism, the people took to the streets. I'm talking about in the millions in Bucharest. And the Ceausescu regime was overthrown by the people of Romania. In fact, before his sentence was given, Nicolae Ceausescu and his wife, they were magnum dumped with over 100 bullets. That is how communism and socialism ended in Romania. And you want my honest truth? How do I think the Western civilization is gonna fall? I think that's exactly what's going to happen, because I can already see it happen. The USA, Canada, UK, and France, they're not getting less racist because of these radical woke policies. The fact that there are millions of people, immigrants and refugees, legal and illegal, they're coming to these countries every single day. The border in these countries are 100% open. It's completely unchecked, it's completely out of control, and eventually the citizens are going to have enough, and the people are going to rise up, and the politicians are going to be riddled with hundreds of bullets. It's going to turn into the purge anarchy. That is what is going to become the Western civilization. You're already seeing the beginning stages. Almost every single Canadian, including many immigrants, wants our borders to be shut down 100%, and there's going to be a massive civil war. Honestly, I don't know what's going to happen, but if it is the worst case scenario, millions of people will die. It will become the 21st century version of the American Civil War. The best advice I can think of, well, like what I have already mentioned, if you have the ability to do so, pack up your bags and leave the Western civilization, because it is soon going to become a third world country.